Such an honor to bring back to the program. Great bass player and highly successful producer, Darius Deezle Harrison. Welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
What's up, Jake?
Uh, you know, um, I kind of just wanted you to talk about, sort of the idea of when you realize that the most important part of art itself is to um, to please yourself. And it's not an ego thing, but the idea there is if you're trying to please other people, then it's a lost cause. So I mean, most importantly, making art to get off on the art for yourself.
I trust my taste. I had to grow into that. So for me, if it's fun and it's creative and it pushes the envelope, then I'm normally into it. But once we find something that because a lot of times I'll create with my friends too, even stuff for myself. I'll uh I'll invite friends over and we'll just play and jam and vibe and I'll be like, oh, that's it right there. Because when you feel it. And um I trust that. So for me it's been a real cool uh creative process throughout my life. Just really, man, just having fun with friends, like what you call it, playing music. Like, it's like you just vibe out and let it happen. And when it does happen, like that's yours. That's your gift from the universe. When you feel that feeling, that's your gift to share.
Like how early in your life, when you talk about the gift itself, I mean, did you recognize? I mean, no one's like you said, you're not Jaco Pastorius or some sort of you know um, you know sort of what are those people called when they're younger is
Oh,
savant,
Prodigy.
yeah, prodigy kind of thing. But the idea of like just really getting into the idea of when you get past the rudiments and the basic language of music, can you talk about like a formative experience early on where you just started to react to the sounds around you and really just started to marinate in the conversation itself?
Mm. So when when I was a kid in single digits, I one of my uncles played percussion, and one of my daddy's other brother played bass. And I would see them jam and stuff like that, and they would learn songs that were on the radio and the top 40 songs because they were playing in a band that had some originals, but they would also do covers. And also there was Stevie Wonder was out playing, and he played his harmonica on a lot of records. And when I was young, I used to love that sound, and I asked my mom what that instrument was, and she said that it was a harmonica. And one day we happened to be riding down Carrollton Avenue, not far from one of the neighborhoods that I spent some of my formative years in, like where I'm actually from. And I saw a music store and I saw instruments hanging on the wall. And I asked my mom if she thought they sold harmonicas there. And sure enough, bro, we walked in and we asked them for a harmonica. And the chromatica was $5. And
Yeah.
that was like the first instrument I got. I didn't know what to do with it.
I love that you got the harmonica, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. I'll still fool around with harmonica every once in a while.
I mean,
Just
that's the blues right there, you know? I mean, that's just going back to the salt of the earth right there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like those were the sounds that I was around, like bass and thumping records and percussive stuff, and all of those things uh, just made me figure out how to bang on stuff. And when I got my first keyboard when I was a teenager, it was a Casio. Well, actually, I got my first keyboard before I was a teenager. It was a little bitty Casio that you could turn on. You could go.
Hmm.
So, that taught me how to bang on things. And then I had my boom boxes, which allowed me to record on cassettes and kind of and build my tracks. And they were terrible, uh, but that was my start of exploring the environment of the sounds that were around me.
I mean, did you have a chance to like incorporate? When was the first time you not just picked up the bass, but I mean, how early were you in collective bands, you know?
Okay, so at 9 years old, I was in my elementary school band until I was 13. And in between that time, I was also playing in symphonic bands and orchestral bands that, were like competition bands for all the schools around the city. And the best students from each school would go to these bands that were, like high level, like prepping for college competition type bands and orchestral bands and symphonic bands.
What were you playing? You playing bass?
I was playing alto saxophone.
Wow. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. Dig.
Yeah, so I was a woodwind player for the first
Was there a rhythm section in those symphonic bands?
yeah, timpani and not
Yeah,
a
there wasn't like a trap set and like upright bass and so.
no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah.
But then when I got to high school, the jazz band that I was in had the trap set, and the marching band, of course, was a marching band, but the jazz band had a trap set and a singular bass player and killer woodwind section and horn section. We had a really good band because Wynton Marsalis also is a product of where I went to high school, and
I got to send you the other interview I got to send you is I haven't gotten to the kids, but I did a seminal interview with the legend Ellis Marsalis. I mean, that dude was so bad. I mean, he knew James Brown as Jimmy Brown. That's
right,
how badass that dude was.
yeah.
Oh my God. All right,
So
go
he was
ahead.
he
Yeah.
was one of my theory teachers in college.
Oh my God, dude. All right. I mean, so we'll get into that, but yeah. So there was a long. I mean, it was just there was a lot of lineage and there was a lot of juice at that high school, obviously.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of incredible people, man. But we, learned like really. So I don't know if you ever heard the saxophone solely from Sweet Georgia Brown. It's like 7 minutes long or something like that.
I haven't seen no.
Well, yeah, there's a saxophone solely, which is a group solo that is like anywhere between 5 and 7 minutes long, and it's like so intricate. And we used to play like that kind of stuff um so tightly and like just so like crazy. We had a Barry sax. I played in jazz band, I played tenor. I played first tenor um after the guy who played first tenor for me before me graduated. Um and we had like four altos. And can you imagine a whole saxophone section just playing a solo in extreme sync and just super on point and tight?
I mean, I really hope there's a recording out there. I mean, that sounds insane because I've heard like amazing musicians like David Grisman, a lot of bluegrass musicians that was a favorite song of theirs to cover. It was a very relatable crossover song, but I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that you're talking about four cats simultaneously soloing, and it worked.
Yeah, well, we're all playing the same solo because the solo was charted out,
Right, but
but
different horns though.
different horns.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
yeah, it was
Oh my
crazy.
God.
There may be a recording if it didn't get destroyed by Katrina.
Yeah.
There may be a recording at the school. I can look for it.
But anyway, talk about that cathartic. I mean, that must have been pretty, frequencies were going up at the time.
Yeah, so in the midst of all of that, my musical brain and my musical soul were being expanded and set free in a way that that I hadn't expected. Because I didn't really grow up listening to jazz. You know, my parents were more like, the 80s and 70s hits, and then, there was like the Brooke Benton and the Sam Cooke and the
Yeah, it was a soul and R&B kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But it was you weren't like it wasn't also like I mean, it was more the pop level. It wasn't like you were listening to Willie T and the Gators or you know, I mean the early Meters albums, were
Well, I
you?
was listening to the Meters and the Neville Brothers. Uh
Growing
Hey
up.
Hey Pocky Way was one of my favorite songs as a
Yeah,
kid.
yeah, yeah, I did. I mean that wow, that's fucking cool. Anyway, so it wasn't like though you were it wasn't like Dolphy and Coltrane, Miles were
No,
going on in the
no,
house or anything like that.
no,
Yeah.
no. So so when I got introduced to that, it was new to me. Joining a jazz band at school, but in the midst of all of that, I had joined a singing group because we needed a bass voice. Well, my friends, they needed a bass voice in their group. And, I had a deep voice. Even as a teenager, as a kid, I had a deep voice. And they were like, "Hey man, you want to be in our singing group?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, you know, I don't think that I can sing, but I don't mind being in the group. So I joined the group and rapidly realized that we couldn't afford to buy music. So I, I got a new Casio keyboard, which is like a 49 key or something like that. And then when I got it, at that time, we had two boom boxes at my house. So I was able to really um, come up with ideas and record them and then rewind the one and play that one while the other one was recording, and I could do overdubs and do parts and stuff. So that was the start to my recording process and actual song production. Like it started like that when I was 16 because we couldn't afford to buy tracks from the producers.
So can you talk to the audience, I think, about because you didn't, I mean, in some ways, I think, how do you, and you can loop it into today, but how did that lack of technology, that lack of sophistication teach you to trust your intuition and instinct on what is um, potentially mainstream popular, but also has that raw feeling to it? I mean, I think people, I could be wrong. I'm not really somebody who is, even though I'm obsessed with sound, I'm a sound seeker. I don't know the ins and outs of engineering or anything like that, and I have no idea about the technology. And I'm just curious about if you feel it was a benefit to you to not have all that technology at your disposal, so you could rely on the primordial to determine what was authentic.
Well, yeah, it definitely benefited me because my keyboard, it didn't do drum programming. It had some built-in beats in it, but I didn't want to use those beats, so I would play the drum kit with one hand and then the keyboard with the other hand. And I would do my best to make sure that it was on time and stuff like that. But I'm not a keyboard player by nature, but I was, I'm banging on the drum kit on one side. You know how it was split?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm banging on the drum kit on one side and the keys on the other side. So I got my drum track and my piano track. Then I would switch to the bass and string split and overdub that if I wanted some strings, or otherwise it would just be a bass. But it made me, it put me in a position where I had to be able to count on myself and I had to deliver for myself because, I mean, of course I could just keep rewinding the tape, but it's not like you have, you could just play it in pieces. You got to play the whole thing. Like you got to play the whole length. And I come from those days, which was actually really cool because you really had to play the song.
Well, okay, I want to be clear. Let's just talk about this. You're talking about today they can do one chorus or one and then cut that and then layer it out for the whole song. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying how, nowadays I see a lot of people do vocals and yeah, they'll fly the chorus. Say like they do a chorus, right?
Right.
They fly the chorus to each chorus, but then don't do any variation, at least in the lead vocal. Like when I started out, you had to sing every chorus, every note of the harmony, however many times you did it, you had to sing that every time it came up in the song because that wasn't flying when I started,
And
so
and that and the point is that that made for each individual chorus to be slightly different as well.
yep,
Yeah,
yep.
exactly. Now that so as opposed to today where they might fly the first chorus, but then I mean they don't. It doesn't. They just copy and paste that all the way through the song.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily do that. Like I'll fly some stuff, but I still make sure that I re-sing, even if it's the same thing, I'll re-sing it or re-rap it just to make sure that it has variation and
I
that
love, and so that explain why that is. That to me is exactly one of the major issues, and that was I mean, that's happening in all. I mean, that's definitely happening in popular music, which includes soul and R&B music.
yep.
I mean, when you talk about variation, how have you learned that variation can become seminal art?
Well, because the brain likes new information. So if your brain realizes, and it will, if you just copy and paste something, your brain's gonna go, okay, I'm past this. I already know this. It's not new information. So variation re-excites your brain and makes it fire and it makes it do those subtle calculations where to your ears it might even sound like the exact same thing. But for your brain is going to realize um, through the amazing uh, power of the calculations that our brain is able to do, this quantum computer we have in our heads, um, it's going to realize that it's different. Even if you don't know it's different, your brain's going to realize it and it's going to re-stimulate it and it's going to be, oh, hey, there's new information. All right, cool. I'm with it.
I freaking love this, man, because I mean, and that goes across the board. But then ultimately, you think that variation titillates the brain to get to a point where um, it the Senate somehow it does even at the executive level, even at the highest of the racket level, even the squarest bean counter cats are going to feel differently about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's,
unreal.
it's
Yeah,
gonna be it's gonna be new information, and that was the recording process uh when I started, when I was a tape op and loading the machine and editing 2-inch tape. It I watched. people have to do that. And like background vocals was a whole day, on a song.
Right, exactly. Because I mean, you had to get it. You had all the people in there. You weren't doing uh, yeah, you couldn't fix the voice. I mean, I guess there was voice boxes
Yeah,
and
you
stuff.
had to sing it right. You had to you had to time it right. You had to know exactly how you were delivering the vocal, all of that stuff, which really helped me a lot. Even to this day in my songs, and just throughout my process of producing stuff for other people, I still apply those things that I learned when I was a teenager, in my working in the studio in my early years of my career. I still apply those things because they matter.
Explain how I mean, uh, meaning that you are still adhering to some of these OG sort of old school principles of having everybody do it in the studio at the same time, as opposed to using pitch corrector or something like that.
Yeah, so, I believe that people who say they can sing should be able to sing.
That's exactly right, man. No, and that's the part that really bothers me is like I don't want to lose this train of thought, but it's like I mean that the cats that are going out and making huge money now, they can't even perform live.
Right,
I mean, it's so inauthentic, and that's before AI. That's just super technology, and then over reliance on technology, and the inability to realize that the human being, the quantum computer, is so far greater than that. Not that you
right,
shouldn't use the technology, but give me a break. You're going to market somebody who can't even go on stage and play live. Anyway,
right.
continue, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's so, I that's really interesting because a lot of people don't realize how much of a how much of an not only influence but handprint that I've had on the world using autotune. Because T-Pain, yeah, so Cher did it in 96. When I heard it in 96, I was like, oh, that's dope. This is gonna be cool for a little while. And then then T-Pain started using
Yeah,
it.
right. Then it became everywhere.
And then T-Pain started using it and he popularized it, but rappers weren't using it. So when rappers started using it was when Lil Wayne started using it. And he was the first rapper to use autotune, and I was the one who was doing it for him. So all those records that influenced all these people and all these rappers to just constantly use autotune, I was a major part of that because I was the one who was making it right for him. So that being said, I for the last decade at least have been telling people, look, if you don't have to use auto tune, don't. Because if you don't understand what it's doing with your voice, then you won't realize why the authenticity of your voice will not come through. And that's because it takes all the harmonics in your voice, the ones that are above the note and below the note, and smashes them to the same note. So then everybody's got perfect pitch when they're using auto tune. And you get the effect, but the effect is played out. Like it's really played out. It's,
Very
you know,
played out. Yes.
yeah, it's been played out. That's why I be telling people, man, please don't use auto tune.
So with Lil Wayne, like how have you modulated it with him, or how do you use it effect? I think this is just it's so great. Honestly, I mean, the definition of genius is making something very complex look very simple, but in some ways it's like you're not abandoning it. You're just not overly reliant on it. You're making it in a, I guess in a way where the people's real vocals and their real voices are coming through.
Yeah, so now when I use it, I use it, I use it sparingly, and a lot of times I'll use it on background vocals. For people who are not the best singers, I'll use it on their background vocals. But if somebody can sing their ass off, I just let them sing it. I just make sure
I
that
love it.
because even if somebody can sing, they don't necessarily realize what vocal production is
That's right.
and the execution of how you execute each word and matching that perfectly so that the vocals actually sound like a chorus and not a bunch of people singing. Like the chorus effect actually, the rubbing because the notes because the delivery is so close, it creates a chorus effect and a widening of the vocals. So um
Wow.
sometimes I'll use it for people's background vocals, but I really like for lead singers to be able to, just be able to deliver a vocal because if you look at the like look at some of the biggest records over the last say 10 years, it's mostly been Drake
Right.
and Beyonce and Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran and Adele. You're hearing natural voices. Even if they tuned it with, say, like Melodyne or whatever, but you're actually hearing natural voices on the lead vocals, which is always interesting to your ear and your brain because it can never be exactly the same. So you're constantly receiving new information and you stay locked in to listen to the songs, And Drake's not he's not a singer, like he just, but his songs are interesting because you're hearing his natural voice. And
Exactly.
yeah,
The vibe is there.
the vibe is there. Exactly.
So this is I just popped it in my head. I remember interviewing great producer as well, David Spinoza, and
Uh-huh.
he was talking about he was on his way to another jingle. He was great studio guitar player as well, and so he was like on his he was at Atlantic and Arif Mardin and Dr. John were like, "Yeah, Spinoza, come in here. We need you to lay down a guitar track." So they started playing this tune. David's setting up his amp and guitar, and it turns out it's "Right Place, Wrong Time" by Dr. John. And I
Wow.
guess maybe there was originally going to be a sax solo, but then they decided they wanted a guitar solo. So they're like, all right, just play over, over this. And so he goes in, he dives in, and he like overbends a string, and in his mind it was just a clam, and he finished. He goes, all right, let me do that again. He goes, they say, no, that's perfect, that's perfect. He's like, what the heck? He's like, all right, I got to go to another gig. He's out of here. A few weeks later, he's got like six guitars over his shoulders going to different sessions back in the 70s when there was real work
Right.
in New York. And he gets in the cab, and the taxi driver's like, "Hey man, check this out. This is my new favorite tune." And he turns on, and he goes, and it's "Right Place, Wrong Time." And he's like, "Man, I play guitar on that." And the taxi driver's like, "You're full of shit." But the point is that, and I've talked to a couple of guys, not necessarily singers, but Louis Shelton was another last train to Clarksville, where
Yeah.
they hit clams. In their mind, they were clams, and they wound up turning into hit songs. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering about for you in your career, instrumentally or vocally, have you had a situation where something wasn't quote unquote perfect? It was a little bit whatever, but yet you knew that the feeling was there and that it was going to work with the tune.
That's happened to me many times. Um,
Wow.
especially so I play guitar. I'm not a guitarist,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah, I mean you're not Cornell Dupree, so
No,
nah.
exactly.
Yeah, right. I
No,
get it.
not
Yeah,
even close.
yeah, it's all right.
I don't even spend the time to do so.
No, I mean I think you're a typical cat. I mean you can get around the instrument enough.
Yeah. So a friend of mine was doing a short film that he was submitting to Cannes Film Festival. And I didn't know, and I didn't even know what con was back then. It
Right,
was
right,
just like
right, right, right.
he was like, "Man, I need my film scored." And I said, "Okay, it's my buddy." I said, "Okay, I got you." It was short films, like 5 minutes. It was a silent film, and he needed it scored. So I pulled out my nylon guitar and I hooked it. I put the video in my Pro Tools and set a microphone up, and I played the video, and I just started playing. And I was playing to what I'm watching. And I did the whole 5 minute thing in one take. He calls me like a couple of months later and was like, D, guess what? I said, what's up, Reed? He said, we won best score. I said, what?
Oh
He said,
my
yeah, man, we won
God.
best score. I said, come on, man, you messing with me. He was like, no, bro, I'm serious. He said, I got the award. My movie got the award for best score in the short film, uh, whatever category it was in. So, I
I want to go
didn't,
back to that solo. Hold on. You were uh I mean, you just were like, okay, that felt good and that's good enough, and it's more about first takes. I mean, what was you didn't go through a lot of intellectualizing. You just sent him what you did, and
yeah,
that,
I just,
yeah.
I just put it in Pro Tools. He was sitting there with me. I put it in Pro Tools. I hit record and I started playing. And when the movie was over, I said, here you go. And that was that.
Wow. So what's the were there clams in there?
I'm sure there were. It was me playing a
I
nylon
mean, clearly
guitar.
you didn't listen back to it at all. I mean, you were like, well, this is done, you know?
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, we listened back to it, but I was like, if I punch in on this, then I'm gonna have to redo all the things after I punch in
Right.
because of the nature of it was a solo nylon guitar thing, and um, and I was playing finger style, and especially back then, I really wasn't a great, like a fluent on guitar enough to punch that in and it match up.
I mean, basically,
So
you were playing single note melodies, not chords, right?
yeah, I was
Yeah,
playing single note melodies.
yeah. I mean, that's my preferred kind of. That kind of makes it so much cooler. But anyway, it's
It
not like
was really cool.
yeah.
And the dynamics of like the tempo changes and all of that stuff, like it would have been a lot to punch in and get it exactly correct because I was doing tempo changes with the emotion of what was happening on screen and like time signature changes, not intentionally, but just following along with what I was watching. At certain moments, the time signature would be a little different because I would follow what was on the screen. But that one won best score. And then
I wanted from the producer side, like where Arif Mardin was like, Spinoza's like, let me do it again, and he's like, no, that's perfect, and it turned into it turned out great. I mean, from your not you as a musician, but as a producer.
so that's happened a few times with me with Wayne back in the day because there's a song I did called Me and My Drink. And I'm playing keys on it. And I'm not a keyboardist. I can play a little bit, but um I just played it straight through. And when I did the beat, he was like, "Ooh, give me that." And so I loaded it up for him, and he wrote a whole song called "Me and My Drink." Him and a guy called Short Dog. And then that happened again when I was playing guitar on a song called "All on Me," and I was playing these strange chords. What was strange to me back then, but I didn't really know what I was playing. I didn't know what it was called and stuff. I didn't know the chord names. I just knew the fingerings. And there's a couple of flubs in it, but people love this song, man. People really love the song.
Me and my drink.
Me and my drink, Drank.
Okay, so I just want to be clear though. Like, did Cats and there be like, yo, do that again, or you were like, no, this works, or did you know?
I
I mean, did
wanted to do it again, but he didn't want me to do it again.
he liked it?
He liked it.
Oh, this is unbelievable.
He was like, I'm ready. Let's do it. I was like, I was like, man, I really want to play that again. He was like, nah, I like it. So that was that one. And then the song called All on Me. I did that as a demo. I had planned to get a guitar player to come and play it. And we recorded that song and people loved it when they heard it in the studio. And next thing you know, it was out on the mixtape and it was one of people's favorite songs on the mixtape. And I was like, man, I got all kind of mistakes in it.
That's so. Even at the time, like, I want to be clear though. When this stuff was coming out, uh, in your mind, you would, of course, Miles said you just have to search for the right notes. There are no wrong notes, But I mean,
Right.
it's like, were you self-conscious of it coming out, and then were surprised that it gravitated so much to people?
Well,
And what did it?
I didn't know it was coming out when it came out. It just ended up he just put it out on a mixtape unannounced and uh
Wow.
the I thought that I would have time to fix it, and make it musician like instead of some guy trying to play these chords. And like you could hear my fingers missing and all that kind of stuff, but it fits the vibe of the song so much. That song is called All on Me.
And that's Lil Wayne too,
That's Lil Wayne featuring Kid Kid.
dude. So and tell me and again, I'm doing this more for cats that are going to listen to this that are in this production realm who are obsessed with making it more musician like, where it's explain that vibe because when you merge the vibe and I mean, listen, computers at this point don't have debit cards. They're not buying music. It's still human beings.
Right.
So explain that vibe because some people will say, "Oh no, that's it messes up. It's not. It's messy." And people, some of that's just their own hangups about obsessive compulsive or being perfectionist. But explain what that vibe of that song was and why those chords worked.
So in that particular song, All on Me, it worked because of the subject matter and like the song is really avant-garde, even for the day. You've never heard
I
a
gotta go
beat.
check. I'll be checking it as soon as we're
Yeah,
done with this.
check
Yeah,
All
yeah.
on Me, and you listen to what Kid Kid is saying. Like it's really gripping what he's saying, and it's just like the awkwardness and avant-gardeness of the beat and his style of rapping and his voice. It just all goes together. Um, I was listening to the Gap Band yesterday,
Sure.
and I was listening to Outstanding, and I've never listened to it the way I listened to it yesterday. Because normally when I'm hearing it, I'm just jamming, so I'm not really paying attention. It's at a function, it's at a barbecue, or
Yeah, right. You're getting down. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But yesterday I'm riding in my truck, and I have a nice system in my truck, so I'm listening to the record, and I'm actually studying it at this point. And I noticed when they got to the a couple of times,
Yeah.
it was super messy. But because the piano was playing bass and the bass was playing bass. And I was like, Wow, I never noticed
Oh,
how
I love this, dude. Because it just so fits the vibe of the song.
it's the vibe of the song, man.
Unreal, dude.
Like same
Unfreaking
thing with Mrs. Officer that I did with Wayne. I played the guitar down in one take, and I played the bass down in one take. And I'm sure, well, let me not say I'm sure there's some wrong notes because, like you said, there are no wrong notes. Um,
he said you have to find the better notes. Whatever,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
And I feel like I did that in creating that song, and it's been working for years and years and years, and it's still working, man. That song plays every day.
Dude, this is blowing my mind. I mean, where do you feel like I don't like trends? I mean, it just I just the less is more methodology, the idea of vibe in the studio. Do you feel like um, some of that is coming back around, or are we still in this overly polished, highly technical, highly synthesized, and that we're there into the future with AI and people sort of just believing that somehow that's the end all be all, which I just completely fundamentally disagree with. I mean, I think it's probably a great tool. It is a great tool. I can look myself up online, and it speaks about me better than I could ever speak about myself. But
Right.
but it's like do you come across other not because a lot of times great producers don't really run across each other because they're always working. But I just wondered, like, do you feel like with the younger generation, I mean, I'm 47, do you feel like there's a longing or a movement towards going back to some of these things that we're talking about where people are not as uptight about I mean, most of the stuff people put out, it's pretty sterile. There was no vibe.
Yeah. So I do notice, especially in the young cats that I deal with here in New Orleans, a lot of them in their in their creation,
Yeah,
the ones who can play, because a lot of people who making music can't play music at
right,
all,
right, right.
and that's another thing. Um, but I'm sure that also contributes to the sterility of it because if you don't have the tools take it farther, to take it further, then how can you? So my
That's right. Yeah, the technology ain't gonna. You can put lipstick on a pig, but
yeah, you
you
can
still
put
yeah,
tits on a bull.
yeah.
So a lot of young cats that I deal with are actually musicians,
Right.
and that's because I'm a producer and an artist, so I'm in the musician circle of of the people that I deal with. But I have friends like have you ever heard of 1500 or Nothing, Lawrence Dobson?
No, but that doesn't mean anything.
Lawrence is and his whole crew. They call 1500 or Nothing. Some of the dopest musicians you'll ever see in
Wow.
this generation, bro. And
Wait, are they local? They're New Orleans cats?
they're in Cali, they're in LA.
Oh my God.
So what they do, which is what I do with my young cats, like we'll just jam and stuff. But what they do is they'll all set up on like whatever their thing is that they're gonna play on that song. So one cat will be playing bass or keyboard bass. Rance will be playing a certain synth or like piano. Mars, he'll play another keyboard, like some lead stuff, and then somebody will be on drums or on the drum machine, and then somebody else will be doing like some percussion stuff, and they'll just record those vibes with everybody playing live at the same time. It's two a click, so it stays on time, and you can edit if you need to. but that's how they create. And I do that with my young cats when we get together. We just vibe and play and jam and create recordings that way, um, so that things aren't sterile because it's not. It's happening. We're recording the moment, not the song.
Right. No, it's live. And I mean, are there any, is there a drum booth? Are there any baffles, or is it just you're in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's the whole setup. Like the bass is plugged in,
But
to
it's
an
not like
amp.
you lay down the rhythm tracks first and then bring it. It's just, it is, hit first take, let's burn and cook it and knock it out.
Yeah. So, like I see Rance and them doing that. I do that with my guys sometimes, and I see other people doing that too. And that's really helpful to the to keep the music from being sterile and keep it alive because it is alive. It's those moments are moments that are alive, and I do see people starting to do that more, which is great for the business and great for records and great for the audience because it's an experience and it's all about the experience. Like people like songs, but why do they like the song? Because the song makes them feel something. It makes them experience something. It brings them to a place, and then when they hear it again 10 or 15 years later, they remember where they were when they first heard it.
It's funny. I just did a big interview with Cedric Martin, who's a bass player in Confunction.
Oh
And
yeah.
he was talking about, I mean, again, this is a totally different time, but it leads into my question. It was, they had four gold records at one point from like 77 to 80. And I'm not an aficionado, but I mean, clearly they were hitting on something.
My
But
dad had all those records.
exactly. And a lot of them were at that point, it was less about the funk and more about like these love ballads,
Yeah.
very, sultry kind of things. But um so when they would cut the record, I mean, ultimately it was up to these bean counters, white, who knows who they were, executives, to make the call about the single that would go and get radio play.
Right.
And he said that on every one of those records that became gold, the songs that the executives chose were not the right were not the hit tunes. Um,
Right.
and it was like, and they didn't really have a liaison, and there was just like no way to like, they knew what was on the street. They were hip to the community. They were the ones on tour, and so their stuff was just not. It was, again, a lot of times they had to go back and say, do we need to release a second single? This
Right.
is, and I just wonder. I mean, when you talk about some of this, have you? And I don't mean to sound naive, but I'm not in the racket. It's just, have you have you had your work like where you put something together, that's you cut a record or you put out something, and yet um and there's multiple takes to it and different kinds of things, but ultimately whatever gets up to the company itself is not what you did?
Uh, no, I'm grateful that I haven't had that experience. Well,
I don't even know what I'm trying to say. Is there anything remotely, because I know that shit. Well, anyway, I'm just saying, like, they it's striking and kind of humbling for me to know that even with that band as a microcosm, the idea that they wouldn't even have a liaison or dialogue with people that had absolutely no clue what they were doing, other than probably coked out of their mind in the late 70s.
so for me, because yes, we were on Universal, which is a major label,
Right.
there was still the independent part of it. And Baby and Slim, they were in the studio every day. Like they're there, they're present. And then the same thing when I moved over to Young Money with Wayne, like we're there together. Now, what I have had happen is, say like when we did Lollipop, it was such an original thing, and Wayne on auto tune, and it was a pop record, but it was still urban and rhythmic, and people were kind of like, what is this?
It was
Like,
raw. It had a rawness to it. Yeah.
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 And then the same thing with Mrs. Officer. I'll never forget. I said, um, Cortez, who used to manage Wayne, he asked me, he said, when he heard it, he said, we are sitting in the car listening to it. He said, man, what is this? I said, this is his next biggest single after Lollipop.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, like, with doubt. And I was like, yeah, it's that. I'm like, this shit is gonna be out of here. And he said, okay, we'll see. And next thing you know, what, 20, almost 20 years later, it's still playing every day.
And so I want to be clear. I mean, Cortez was the manager, but there wasn't there. You didn't even, did you have to push and advocate at the upper levels because it was kind of outside the box, or did that it just? I mean, obviously, there's always people that are going to be like, okay, we'll see. But there's a different story when they're like, no, you need to go back, and this is just too uh avant-garde, you know?
No, we didn't really experience that a lot because of, what Cash Money was for Universal.
Right, 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 right.
And like most of the things that Cash Money bet on and put out as singles were not records that some label exec would get and go, oh yeah, that's it. But these records were, you know, they were killing.
Right. They
So
were, I mean, it was just like that's cool because it was sort of the old school model where it was like, hey, you know what? We're making money, we're just gonna get out of their way, you know?
yeah, and that's
Yeah,
that's the respect that they've had since they got signed to a major label. And and I was fortunate to be able to be under that umbrella of respect, of the respect of our creativity.
exactly. Deez, I gotta ask you a question. Can we do set two next week?
Sure.
You all right? Because I gotta hop out of here, but it's I know
Yeah,
at
I
this
got to
point in
run
my,
too. But yeah, let's do set two next week.
all right, yeah, it was good times, good feel.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah. All right, great. Yeah, no, happy Thanksgiving. It's really it's divine timing to connect with you at this point in my career, man. So
Same
happy
to you, my
Thanksgiving,
brother.
man. All right.
Happy Thanksgiving, bro.
All right. Be cool, man.
All right, peace. Talk to you next week.
Peace. Yeah.